Anybody here?
I don't think so.
Huh? Come on.
Call the ambulance!
Is there something we can do?
I do report it, and the trouble is yours.
Leaving the big guy alone.
Your uncle?
About it now. Come on, I got to
Don't
go.
lie to me.
All the hands! Police!
The film begins with a harrowing scene where a group of gangsters ruthlessly sets a man on fire, ignoring his desperate cries for help. The narrative then transitions to the gang leader, Bumpy, who is seen distributing food aid to a crowd of impoverished individuals, while his right-hand man, Frank, watches him with a piercing gaze filled with tension. Sensing the weight of Frank's stare, Bumpy calls him aside for a private conversation. As they walk through the streets, Bumpy voices his concerns about the severe economic downturn affecting the country. However, their discussion takes a tragic turn when Bumpy collapses from a heart attack while entering a store. Despite Frank's frantic pleas for assistance from the store owner, no one comes to their aid, and Bumpy ultimately succumbs to his condition. Bumpy's funeral draws a large gathering of gang leaders and influential figures, with news reports contrasting his legacy as a local hero against the government's portrayal of him as a criminal. Inside the funeral parlor, attendees seem to be more engaged in socializing than mourning. One guest, Tango, even treats Frank dismissively, sending him on an errand for a lighter, which Frank silently endures. Amidst this atmosphere, another man approaches Frank to express his condolences and offers support should he choose to seek vengeance against those who owe allegiance to his deceased boss. The scene shifts to Richie, a cop with dreams of becoming a lawyer. While investigating a drug-related case alongside his partner Jay, he stumbles upon a truck filled with $1 million in cash. Despite Jay's urging to keep the money for themselves, Richie decides to report it to their superiors, earning disapproving glances from his colleagues at the station. Unbeknownst to Richie, Detective Trupo, a senior officer, has deep ties to various drug lords. Frank learns of this connection from an Italian drug lord and, after a frustrating interaction with Tango, who refuses to cooperate following Bumpy's death, he begins to contemplate entering the drug trade himself. He reaches out to his cousin Nate in Thailand for potential collaboration and withdraws $400,000 from the bank before embarking on his journey. Meanwhile, Richie's personal life unravels as his wife announces her intention to leave the state with their son and file for divorce. All the while, Richie struggles to balance these personal challenges with his preparation for law exams. In Bangkok, Frank meets Nate, who serves in the army, to negotiate with a group of local drug dealers as he ventures deeper into the world of crime. When Frank requests a substantial quantity of drugs, Nate advises him to diversify his sources. However, Frank is adamant about obtaining the product directly from the primary supplier, leading them into the jungle to meet the main drug producer.
This whole spot's locked down by the...
Initially skeptical of Frank's capability to smuggle 100 kilos of heroin into the United States, the producer ultimately recognizes Frank's unwavering determination and agrees to partner with him. As production begins, Frank entrusts Nate with the critical task of transporting the drugs back to the U.S. Meanwhile, Richie finds himself in a precarious situation when his partner, Jay, becomes entangled in drug dealings and ends up killing a local dealer. Although Richie intervenes to save Jay from a mob's wrath, he grapples with his conscience and resolves not to cover for him, choosing to uphold his moral integrity. At the same time, Frank successfully retrieves his shipment from the airport, where a scientist verifies its purity at 100%.
How we looking?
It's 100%.
With this confirmation, Frank embarks on distributing the drug throughout New York while maintaining a low profile. However, as the death toll from drug overdoses begins to climb, the government responds by establishing a special narcotics bureau and discreetly enlists Richie to lead investigations into the growing crisis. In a bid to support his family, Frank purchases a lavish property for his mother and reunites with his entire family. He introduces his brothers to the drug trade and takes revenge on Tango by eliminating him in a public confrontation. Concurrently, Richie assembles a dedicated team of detectives to investigate blue magic, the drug distributed by Frank. During a party, Frank experiences love at first sight with a stunning Puerto Rican beauty queen named Eva. Yet, he is momentarily distracted by his brother's ostentatious attire and privately chastises him for wearing expensive suits that could draw unwanted attention from law enforcement. Later that evening, Frank approaches Eva and introduces himself. In parallel, Richie passes his bar exams while diligently working with his team to uncover new leads on blue magic. As their relationship deepens, Frank introduces Eva to his mother, solidifying their bond. Months later, Frank expands his operations by opening distribution centers in North Carolina, Queens, New Jersey, Brooklyn, and several other states, amassing millions in profits. With this newfound wealth, he secures a lucrative deal with a wealthy businessman, establishing a monopoly in the drug market. In a romantic gesture, Frank proposes to Eva, who gives him an extravagant coat in return. To celebrate their engagement, they attend a star-studded boxing match filled with celebrities, politicians, and influential figures. In a twist of fate, Richie finds himself at the same event and observes the unusual attention Frank receives, prompting him to question Frank's true identity. Driven by suspicion, he promptly initiates an investigation, but his team hits a wall with no leads on Frank. As Frank prepares to marry Eva, their wedding day takes an unexpected turn when Detective Trupo, head of the Special Investigative Unit, blocks their car. He demands payment after noticing the extravagant $50,000 coat Frank wore to the boxing match. Alarmed by this confrontation, Frank rushes home and incinerates the coat in a desperate attempt to preserve his low profile. Unfortunately, the damage is already done. Richie has gathered intel on Frank, prompting his team to delve into the lives of Frank's brothers, ultimately uncovering his drug distribution and collection operations. One fateful day, after a business meeting with a dealer, Frank and his brother find themselves once again obstructed by Detective Trupo, who discovers a bag of drugs in their vehicle. Enraged by his brother's carelessness, Frank lashes out in anger. Unbeknownst to them, Richie observes this volatile encounter from a distance while trailing them. Motivated to dig deeper into Frank's activities, Richie faces warnings from his best friend about the potential dangers of crossing someone with political connections like Frank. Undeterred, Richie intensifies his focus on Frank. Amidst this brewing tension, Frank narrowly escapes an assassination attempt on him and Eva, leading his brothers to suspect their rival, Nicky Barnes, is behind the attack. However, Frank dismisses their concerns and rebuffs Eva's suggestion to relocate abroad for safety. Concurrently, news breaks of U.S. troop withdrawals from Vietnam and Thailand, heightening Frank's anxiety about his drug supply lines. He immediately reaches out to Nate, requesting over 2,000 kilos of drugs. When Nate hesitates, Frank impulsively decides to fly to Thailand. Meanwhile, Richie witnesses one of Frank's cousins committing a violent act by shooting a girl. To avoid jail time for attempted murder, Jimmy agrees to wear a listening device to gather incriminating evidence against Frank. In Thailand, Frank meets with the drug producer to strategize new smuggling methods since their previous military plane route will soon be unavailable. While discussing the logistics of an upcoming drug shipment with his brother, they remain unaware that Richie and his team are eavesdropping on their conversation through Jimmy's hidden device, inching closer to unraveling Frank's empire. Through their conversation, Richie and his team manage to decode critical information revealing that a drug shipment is set to arrive via a military plane. On the day of the plane's arrival, Richie presents a warrant to search the aircraft. They meticulously comb through every inch of the plane but find nothing. Just when it seems all hope is lost, Richie makes the bold decision to open a coffin transporting the remains of American soldiers. To his dismay, he discovers only the lifeless body of a soldier inside. However, his investigation is abruptly interrupted by an officer who vehemently criticizes him for even suggesting that the military could be complicit in drug smuggling. When Richie insists that his intel is credible, the officer's anger escalates, unable to fathom that a black man like Frank could orchestrate such illicit activities through a military channel. Meanwhile, Detective Trupo and his unit raid Frank's home, subjecting his wife and mother to harassment in their quest for money. After a thorough search, they uncover several bags of cash hidden in the dog's house. As this unfolds, Richie continues to monitor the transportation of the coffins. Frank, having just returned from Thailand, learns of the Special Investigation Unit's invasion of his home.
Please, sit down.
Listen,
Sit
I
down.
got to go.
Sit down. Just a few words.
Shoot, no, I promise you, I ain't gonna shoot no.
I never
Come on, I
believed.
got to
Don't
go.
lie to me. Do you want to make things so bad? She will leave. I will leave you.
Keeping a close eye on the coffins, Richie and his team make a shocking discovery. The drugs are cleverly concealed in a secret compartment within one of the coffins. Determined to act, they track the truck transporting the drugs and identify the storage facility.
Everybody in place. All right, they're cutting and bagging.
Once they locate the site, Richie promptly requests a warrant and backup to secure the area. When reinforcements arrive, they execute a raid, resulting in an intense gunfight between law enforcement and Frank's associates.
Police!
In the chaos, one of Frank's brothers attempts to flee but is apprehended by Richie after a brief chase. Meanwhile, as Frank attends a church service, police converge to arrest him. His distribution networks are dismantled, and he ultimately faces charges in court for drug smuggling. Following a court session, Frank seeks a private meeting with Richie, attempting to persuade him to drop the case against him. However, Richie remains steadfast in his commitment to see the case through to its conclusion. Recognizing the futility of his plea, Frank proposes a deal. He will disclose the names of corrupt police officers and high-ranking officials involved in the smuggling operation. In exchange, Richie promises to advocate for a more manageable life for Frank in prison until his eventual release. In a dramatic turn of events, Frank reveals the identities of numerous individuals, resulting in the arrest of nearly half the officers from the Drug Enforcement Agency. He also plays a crucial role in guiding the investigation toward Detective Trupo, who had embezzled funds from Frank's doghouse stash. As the walls close in on him, Detective Trupo chooses to take his own life rather than face arrest. With the arrests made, Richie acknowledges Frank's invaluable assistance in bringing down the corruption within the agency. Ultimately, Frank is sentenced to 70 years in prison for drug distribution, with over $250 million in assets confiscated. The fallout is significant. Nearly 3/4 of the drug enforcement officers are convicted for their collusion with organized crime, and more than 30 members of Frank's family face imprisonment as well. Meanwhile, Frank's wife returns to Puerto Rico, and Richie decides to leave his position as a police officer to become Frank's defense attorney. Thanks to Frank's cooperation in exposing other criminals, the court reduces his sentence to 15 years, leading to his release in 1991. On the day of his release, Richie waits outside the prison gates to celebrate this momentous occasion. As they stroll through the city together, Frank is awestruck by the myriad changes that have taken place during his time behind bars. Thank you for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.